What criterion do you use to assess whether behavior is toward goal or not?
So, excellent question, and here I will give the annoying answer of appealing to a veteran or an expert or whatever, because that depends on the person. In other words, somebody has probably accomplished what you want to accomplish already, and so inquiring with that person will give you a very good idea of where to start to prevent you from having to invent the wheel again.
What questions would you ask that person?
That, again, more or less has to do with the nature of the problem you want to solve. You could start as simple as starting out with a compliment to saying, I really like that you can do X, Y, and Z. Tell me what you think contributed to that. And their version of that thing may differ dramatically from what really contributes, but it will give you more than nothing. And then if you can consult maybe quite a few people that have accomplished the same thing that you want to accomplish. And by comparing their answers, you can keep the similarities and kick out the differences, which some people might call a common factors analysis, that you can see what looks similar between all the people that you've spoken with, and then that probably gives you a robust way to start making comparisons and what to measure. So I strongly believe in, I think somebody said comparing is the thief of joy, but really demanding perfection is the thief of joy. Perfectionism thieves the joy. Comparing promotes progress. How do you know you've done better or not?
Well, it's funny because endemic to what you just described there is the idea of comparison with judgment, right? Comparing to assess differences is not what that expression means.
No, you have so in this case, technically speaking, you would have feedback, where I define feedback as information that you can use to change what you do.
Consider that even that expression, right? If somebody says, can I give you some feedback? For a lot of people, the first reaction,
yes, this opens up a different can of worms. You can only know if you do better if you take a measurement, if you compare to a standard. Now, measuring in and of itself gives you information which you could use or not. A perfectionistic undertones to what we do can sort of sour any of the information we do get. In other words, if you take a measurement and the measurement deviates from what you would prefer, then that makes it a bad experience and it will prompt you to avoid measuring. And so because you ask a question, measure. Basically, measuring means you ask a question, okay? What does this look like compared to this? If you put a ruler next to a nail, you say, well, what does the nail look like in comparison to this ruler? Okay, so you just ask a question. Before you measure the nail, you say, well, this nail has to be 3 inches or else I will pound myself in the hand with it, pound myself into the table with it, and the nail turns out 2.5 inches. Well, you've already made a rule for yourself that you would punish yourself based off of that outcome. Like you generated fictional feedback and then used that feedback to create a rule to follow before you've even gone through with the measuring process, mentally from using a tool to get good information.
And also has a kind of an identitarian issue, right? To the extent that if this nail must be this, and it is in fact 2.5, that's as arbitrary as anything, because that nail could also be 1 ounce.
It creates a dichotomous situation where people create rules for themselves, where something must be this way or else insert dumb behavior here.
Based off what you were describing there, it sounds like if you want to make something easier to do, having more reinforcement around you is a pretty good way to get yourself to do it, huh?
If you like to do something, you will do it more often given the opportunity.
Can you give examples of how you've engineered making things that maybe aren't traditionally fun to do, more fun to do?
Yes, although it creates another chicken-egg sort of situation. I will tell you that if you suck at something, then you will have more punishing experiences than rewarding ones. And the better you get at something, the more rewarding experiences you have compared to punishing ones, which means in the meantime, you want to contrive rewards. In the real world, we call this something like teaching or mentoring or taking classes or whatever, where you work with someone else who can do something better than you so that they can provide you with rewards that indicate you have made approximate progress towards the ideal. If I want to make a 3-pointer in basketball, good luck, I will miss 100 out of 100 shots. And if I tried to do it by myself, I'd probably get frustrated and give up. If I had somebody standing next to me that knew how to play basketball, they could make adjustments to my form, they could give me commentary about how to improve, and that means that even when I make get tingles talking about this. That means even when I miss a shot, the coach can tell me what I did right. This, to use a fancy term, this contrived reinforcement helps bridge the gap between I suck at something and I've gotten skilled enough to derive reward from the environment. So if I get good enough to make free throws or three-pointers, then every time I make a three-pointer, I'll get a reward for making the shot. But I have to make those shots often enough to stay interested in playing. If we look at all this in isolation, having the other person there to reward me for doing things better even when I miss the free throw helps bridge the gap between something that sucks and getting good enough at something to like it. So for more complex tasks, that follows. For simpler things, I think that varies a little bit and gets into a different conversation of like, how do I make brushing my teeth more fun or whatever. That would probably take, for me anyway, a little extra effort on the side to devise a more proper answer. But in reality, you either like something or not based off of the immediate result of doing the thing. So for instance, if you hate slimy things, then maybe brushing your teeth repulses you because after you brush your teeth feel slimy. And that no matter what you do, no matter the way our current culture describes that clean feeling of smooth brushed teeth, that will repulse that person. And so that would mean you would have to devise another set of conditions to motivate a person to brush their teeth. Some people like the slimy feeling of freshly brushed teeth. It has an intrinsic reward in the process. And like maybe some people hate sweet things. Well, then would they like the toothpaste? No. So right now, like toothbrushing, for instance, businesses and parents have tried to engineer it from a cultural standpoint to make it as beneficial to as many people as possible. Like, well, we can make it sweet. We can have a nice textural feeling inside the mouth after. We can make the bristles soft. We can make the toothbrush fun looking and an interesting, like we have devised all of these methods, but that does nothing for a person who hates slimy sweet things. So that makes it, even though from a systems development standpoint kind of standard, from person to person, you would still have to determine like what does this person like, so I can engineer it as part of the process. I can engineer it as part of a consequence for doing something I want to do more.
I see. So it sounds like there really is no one size fits all. And to your point, people guess, right? Kids probably like sweet stuff, but if you have a kid who doesn't like sweet stuff, you're kind of out of luck.
If we agree with that as a contributing factor to the toothbrushing behavior, yes. So for me, if you had prime rib flavored toothpaste, I might brush my teeth more often. Now I brush my teeth. Exactly. A lot of people would find that gross. Exactly my point. And then that brings up the question: what do some people find pleasurable or not? And that just has to do with the pairing of experiences earlier on. But really, the experiences you've had in the past determine what you do right now, and I doubt anybody would argue with that. So from the one size fits all, I would argue one size does fit all in the context of the framework. You want to have a rewarding consequence for doing a thing, and if that happens, then you will do it more often given the opportunity. The variability comes in with given the person's preferences, which I define as the distribution of choices made over time in similar conditions, what consequence most likely makes this behavior to occur later.
So reward universally will encourage behavior, but what rewards will have individual variance?
Depends on the learning history, correct. And culture, as we define it, more or less tries to, if we make culture an agent here, culture essentially defines what we find rewarding. And so it gives us all rules to follow so that we all get raised in similar ways, so that things like toothbrushing make sense for a vast majority of people. A vast majority of people like sweet things, they like feeling clean. So for a lot of people, toothbrushing behavior has intrinsic reward because we got taught early on to like those things.
And so you talk about culture there, and one of the keystones of your Kickstart program obviously is affiliations, right? The people around you. And there's that expression you hear all the time, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so it sounds to me like that describes a very similar phenomena to what you're describing about how what you're reinforced for is what you like and what you end up doing, right?
I would say yes, with the caveat that you can choose who to spend time with. So if we agree that you end up taking on some of the behaviors of the people you spend time with, which I think follows, does it then follow you must spend time with those people all the time? No, it means that if you want to change what you do, you have a higher probability of changing what you do if you change where you do it and who you do it with. You can change your behavior in other ways, but that ends up having the strongest, most immediate effect.
Changing your environment and the people around you has the highest likelihood of changing your behavior
in general. Yeah. If you go to an alien place with alien people, you will act different than you do right now with me. Correct. Now, engineering that secondary situation to raise the probability of doing something useful opens up a different conversation.
Yeah.
And for that, we have things like school, right? So this ends up, again, opening a different can of worms, but hopefully that gives you an idea of just how much the environment affects what you do. If you suddenly appeared on Mars, I doubt you would act the same way.
Yeah.
Give them air. I simplify or reduce things in this way on purpose because they do have that big of an effect, and I think we overcomplicate things, and we overcomplicate them such that we use it as permission to avoid doing anything about it. I would too.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Sweet.
I do. We all do.
If you're picking up what I'm putting down and want to learn more about cognitive nutrition so you can finally live the life you deserve, then learn about my Kickstart program by clicking the link in the description box below.